but you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name. George Washington was a slave owner. Was George Washington a slave owner? So will George Washington now lose his status? Are we going to take down, excuse me, are we going to take down statues to George Washington? How about Thomas Jefferson? What do you think of Thomas Jefferson? You like him? Okay, good. Are we going to take down the statue? Because he was a major slave owner. Now, we're going to take down his statue. So you know what? It's fine. You're changing history, you're changing culture, and you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay? And the press has treated them absolutely unfairly. Now, in the other group also, you had some fine people, but you also had troublemakers, and you see them come with the black outfits and with the helmets and with the baseball bats. You had a lot of bad people in the other group too.
Treated unfairly, sir. I'm sorry, I just didn't understand what you were saying. You were saying the press has treated white nationalists unfairly? No. I just didn't understand what you were saying.
No. There were people in that rally, and I looked the night before. If you look, there were people protesting very quietly the taking down of the statue of Robert E. Lee. I'm sure in that group there were some bad ones. The following day it looked like they had some rough, bad people, neo-Nazis, white nationalists, whatever you want to call them. But you had a lot of people in that group that were there to innocently protest and very legally protest because, you know, I don't know if you know, they had a permit. The other group didn't have a permit. So I only tell you this, there are two sides to a story. I thought what took place was a horrible moment for our country.
Good morning, Bob. How are you?
I'm doing just fine, Mac. How are you?
Great. Welcome to the Mac Commentary. We're going to continue our discussion here this morning, people, about what's been happening with the Charlottesville's uprising, if you want to call it that. In my opinion, I think it's just something that's been set up by the powers that be. And they are using blacks as the pawn in this, as well as the other alt-right, as they are called now. Blacks, I don't think, care anything about whether statues are set up, or flags are flown, or anything like that. I think if you ask the average black out there on the street, who is General Robert F. Lee, or Robert E. Lee, or whatever his name is, they will not know that. The average person will not know because they don't know anything about that history, especially anybody under 50 years old. Those the symbolic of those statues and the flag and everything have been around for a number of years. And I don't think they really bother anybody. They mean something to some people and everybody have a different connotation of things in life, of what things mean to them. And perhaps to these people, the alt-right, maybe they do symbolize racism or white supremacy or whatever you want to call it. But I don't think that most people out there, or the whites in particular, are concerned about whether or not the racism in this country. I think they are looking at those statues as part of their heritage, just as we look at certain things we have here in Michigan. We have, I believe, an African American Museum. I think they just put one up in Washington, D.C. You might say, well, this isn't the same thing. Well, it's history. And whatever they choose to value as history, let them value that. I mean, statues don't go out and attack you. And now when they had that march there in Charlottesville, that was they had given them a permit to go and do that march. Did the other people have a permit to go out there? No, they did not have one. But They went out there and they were prepared to fight. There were certain elements out there who came out with helmets and bats and batons ready to fight the alt-right. Now, those people should have been able to march in peace as the Constitution give us that right of free speech and the right to assemble. And with Bob here this morning, we're going to go into this a little bit more detail here. We had the people jumping all over the president because I tell you, I was really proud of this president. He did not. I thought surely he would do as other presidents have done. Whatever the powers that be tell them what to do, they do it. But this president did not back down from his statements on Saturday, and I agree with him. These people had just as much a right to be out there, and the other people did not have the right to go out there and intimidate those people. They started the fight as far as I'm concerned. Bob, I'd like to hear your comments on this.
Well, thank you, Mac. Yes, I saw portions of President Trump's press conference where he wanted to talk about infrastructure, but supporters began to ask him questions about the little melee in Charlottesville, Virginia. And it occurred to me that when I saw this, I said, you know, the president this guy is a real critical thinker. I'm very proud of him as well because he pointed out that, just as you just said, people have a right to their own thoughts, to their own behaviors. There were lots of people in those audiences out there that with those people that were not causing disturbances. There were the so-called alt-right and the alt-left that were fighting each other. And I think that they ought to let them fight each other. I mean, as I sat there and looked at that, I thought, well, during the Civil War, you only had 5% of the population at the time that were killed by that war. About 650,000 people out of a population of 12 million. And today, if we let these people that are at each other's throats, and as you said, it didn't appear to be a lot of blacks out there. Probably those blacks that were being paid by the Soros organization to be there. If you had that same proportion number of people killed in proportion to the population today, you would have 37 million people slaughtered, and they would slaughter themselves. And perhaps those of us who can sit back and watch this kind of melee go on ought to just leave it alone. And I think that the president understands that. He knows that, as he said, this has been going on for a long time. It wasn't him and it wasn't Barack Obama that started this. So he's not going to buy into all of this nonsense of all the America. See, he knows this. The president knows this. He knows that America is a white nation. America was started for white people. It wasn't started for blacks. It wasn't started for Chinese. It wasn't started for Indians from India. Although much of the whites that came here from Europe, escaping George III, came here and took much of the land from native peoples who were all already here. But that's another topic. But I think what is happening is you have these so-called liberals, so-called liberals or liberal-thinking people who take advantage of the fact that this is a white nation because they consider themselves white, and they want to insulate themselves by saying, well, I'm not a racist. But you cannot live in a country like America and be white without benefiting from the privileges that just being white affords you. I don't have access to those privileges because I'm not white. and the country clubs and all of the various hotels and those things that are set up for white people, these intellectually dishonest whites, they want to insulate themselves and feel better, and so when they see the whites who don't have the economic stability to take advantage of country clubs and the finer things that the privileged whites have, and they see them go out and petition for that, they send out their forces, the so-called alt-left, to counteract them. No, you get back in your hole. Go back to your trailer park. Go back to your apartment. You're not entitled to be at Trump Tower. And I'm not equating Donald Trump with that group, but I think he understands that. He understands that phenomenon that America is a white supremacist country built on white privilege and white power all over the world. And that's the way we have always been as a nation. Those of us who are not white have access to some of the drippings, like the guy that was the chairman of Merck, who resigned from the council. He is a black person who is benefiting from some of the drippings of this white nation because he's black. If and they said, well, we need to get some of these other people in here to make it appear as though we're a beneficent country who treats our people who are not white in a nice fashion.
Well,
and I think that
Bob,
that's coming to pass today.
That's a very good point there. I mean, you really laid it out there. I really think that was just a very admirable dissertation on the situation here in America. And that diatribe just totally wiped me out in what you were saying, because I totally agree with you. And you spoke of this CEO of Merck. I mean, it's amazing how you brought his name up, because here no one knew that he was the CEO of Merck. At least most blacks didn't know that. And I didn't know myself until yesterday. And one of the things that we had talked about on our last recording was Percocet, which is an opioid type of synthetic drug. And Merck is one of the distributors and manufacturers of that particular drug.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, yeah. And or maybe it's OxyContin or something like that. That's another opioid type of drug. I mean, and they make those opioids too. And it's amazing if you go to. I'm gonna just equate this I'll take a second here. If you look at all the major cities, I won't say 100% of them, but many of them, put it like that, have black police chiefs. But the majority, in many instances, of the police force is white.
Yes.
But so that when they go out and do something against the colored populations of those cities, people can't come back and say it was racist. They can say, look, we got a black police chief.
Right.
And the same thing here, when they are distributing these drugs, which they are beginning to now, I see they're beginning to start distributing drugs in the black community because they are using the rappers. They started out legitimizing the rappers by letting them sell products like liquor and malt liquor and 40 ounces and high-end liquors. And the women were out there rapping about their clothing and stuff like that they were promoting that because these rappers have multi-millions of followers, Bob.
Yes.
So now they're going to try to push the drugs out on the black community. And this goes along with what you were saying before, how they would take out a certain number of blacks through the addiction process and overdosing process. It has already started in the white community. And,
right.
And I think they may have been surprised at how it hit there, because you see, first of all, whites they can easily afford, rather, the prescription drugs, whereas your average black out there can't go and get a prescription from a doctor and easily buy that. But they can buy it on the black market. And then once they get hooked on the synthetic drugs, which is more addictive than heroin or the opium that comes naturally, then what happens? If they can't afford to get the prescription to pay for that, then what they'll do, they'll go and start on the heroin, the street stuff. But the main thing right now, by having this CEO, I'm not saying he's not qualified. He's probably more qualified than any other CEO out there, Bob. You know how that works. But here he is now ahead of this company, and this company now here, and the powers that be are using their rappers now to promote the drugs so they can sell the debilitating type of products like this.
Right, and when you couple that with this Charlottesville circumstance over the weekend, and that's why I think that you were very, very accurate in your assessment of President Trump. See, President Trump is an honest man. He's got his heart right. President Trump has a lot of black friends. I mean, he was friends with Michael Jackson. He was friends with Don King. He's friends with a lot of black people who have done a lot for their people. And so but he has been a rich boy all his life. I mean, he borrowed millions of dollars from his father to begin his fortune. Well, I've heard him say this, that the people that he likes most are the people that work the laboring jobs on his construction sites. Why is that? I think it's because in those people he sees the heart of America. And when you see those whites out there fighting for their livelihood, I was just thinking about something you were talking about people have a right to their statues. What do you think the outcome would be if all of a sudden white people started saying that they wanted to go to Washington, D.C. and tear down the statue of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. or tear down the African American Museum in Washington, D.C., or come to Detroit and tear down the African American Museum here? There would be an outpouring of blacks, I would think, to resist that. Well, and not because they, that they're racist or that they're blacks who hate whites. They just want to protect something that's dear to them. It's a historic symbol. These people mean something to them who have suffered and died for their cause. Well, I look at it from the standpoint that those people, that Robert E. Lee, Stonewall Jackson, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, all these people were Caucasian white men who helped founded this white supremacist country of America based upon white supremacy. And so the white people who see their rights being violated and being lost, they want to stand up and protect that, just as any other race would want to stand up and protect their rights. And so that's why I see back a drive towards a racial war in America. It may not happen over the next several years, but I see a war coming to America, much like we had during the Civil War, where you will see mega deaths. I mean, you will see millions of people die in the streets. And it's a dangerous situation because it won't make any difference whether you're a minister or a banker or a CEO. you will be just as vulnerable to being shot down in the street as anybody else, and that's what I see happening, because they're ginning this up, and the reason they're ginning it up, in my opinion, is because these whites who voted for President Trump, they believe that there's going to be an economy regenerated to put them back to work, and they can make America great again, and it could be not where they had slaves or anything like that, but where they were able to go to a place and get a job making $16, $20 an hour, build a neighborhood, send their kids to school. Well, that's not going to happen. That is definitely not going to happen. And I'll say this and close this diatribe. Why? Because today we're in the competition with the biggest competitor in the world, and that's China. China is moving ahead. China is creating a billionaire every week. And in 1980, China, 80% of China's people made less than $2 a day. In a nation of 1.4 billion people. Today, in 2015, China had a per capita income of $8,100 a year, from whatever $2 a day is times 365 days. Over that period of time, that has increased its let me put it this way: in order for American workers to increase their per capita income like that, it would take 740 years. So when you look at that and you say to yourself, wow, these people out here fighting each other for something that is not going to happen, and they don't even know why they're fighting each other back.
Bob.
And the thing that I think that's the key to this,
Mm-hmm.
and I think you touched on this, I didn't see a lot of blacks out there in Charlottesville. I saw the ones that were being paid. I saw that guy with that little flamethrower. I was thinking, where the hell would you get a little flamethrower that size? The ones I've seen in the military, guy's got a big pack on his back and is shooting a flame about 40 or 50 feet, But he had one that looked like a little deodorant can. Now, he had to get that out of his stipend from the Soros group,
Well, right, and one of the things, Bob, I mean, that you really just hit all points right there, because this definitely has been a plan by the powers that be, because blacks had I don't think those blacks had any intentions of going out there on their own. How many times have the people march with flags and the Ku Klux Klans and march? No blacks go out there and protest in the marches. At least I have never known anybody go out there to pray. I mean, they do what they want to do. We do what we want to do. We march too, right?
That's right.
But definitely, something is going on with the powers that be, because I read somewhere where they are saying that the Black Lives Matter are the ones who are precipitating this cultural war.
Yes.
And I'm going to tell you, Bob, I don't know anything about the Black Lives Matter except when they went out there and started marching when the young man got killed there in Missouri, I believe it was.
Right.
That's when they came in forefront, and that's when we also found out that they were created by this guy Soros.
He's a Jewish billionaire, and you got to remember, look at his history. He's a Hungarian Jew, and he is the same person who sold many of his own countrymen, Jews, to the Nazis, and he is the guy that's funding Black Lives Matter at the tune of what I've read, $25 million. And when I saw that, I said, well, what would be this guy's motive? He's not interested in uplifting black people. What he is interested in is getting rid of that 30 million black people who are the dredge, you might say, on society and cause because this guy, when you look at his history, every time there has been turmoil, he's made billions of dollars. He made billions of dollars when he almost made the Bank of England fail, and so he thrives on turmoil and confusion. And when you think about that, capitalism would like to have a smooth transition whenever it's operating. You know, capitalism is the opportunity to do well, and but this guy has developed a kind of a counter capitalism model.
But Bob, I don't think he's working alone. I think.
Oh no, absolutely not. No, but I just point that out in terms of Black Lives Matter. You know, who their main funding source is. I mean, they may have a budget of $50 or $100 million because it's going to take a lot of money to bring about the kind of confusion and mega death that I foresee happening in this country over the next 5-10 years. I mean, I believe, Matt, that you could have at 5% of the population decimated, destroyed in America, just as 5% were killed during the Civil War.
Well, for sure you can, Bob, but this is a warning to all of the people of color out there. When this starts, you have to be careful out there. It's going to start. You're going to have to, right now, watch and be careful of your surroundings, because things.
That's right.
Because it can kick off any day, and this is not anything that I'm just talking about, Bob. That off the cuff right here. I mean, when the more I look into this, the more I see that how things are happening. Just look over the last month or so. You've had the riots that come out. Since Trump has been in office, we've seen more things happening with they talked about with the riots of 1967, for instance. They even made a movie of it.
Right.
And we talked about this before. They came out with this movie, The Planet of the Apes.
Right.
And here on the back of the helmet of one of those apes, it says the only good ape is a dead ape. Now that was that same language was used back in the day against blacks. The only good nigger is a dead nigger, and that's what they used to say. And then we had the skinheads there, and the guy shaving his head. He was the head of the skinheads, the symbol. And
but you know what, Mac? You know, I don't think that most people, black or white, can see the turmoil that is kind of simmering. You know how when you put a pot on the stove with just water in it, it has to warm up and warm up. Well, you're in the warm-up phase right now, and eventually you'll get boiling. And when it boils, and you're absolutely correct, when that starts, when that happens, it'll be like, boom. It'll be so quick that you wonder, how did that happen? Well, it didn't just happen. It was, how when you light a piece of paper on fire, you put the flame to it, and all of a sudden, whoosh, it takes off. Well, that's the same thing in society. When this revolution or disorder, whatever you call it, riot, when it happens, and it's going to be bloody. It's going to be difficult, and a lot of people will die. But the leaders are not talking about this. They're sidetracking us with all kinds of nonsense.
And what I like Bob, what I like to know is, where are the black leaders? I'm sure that they can see all of this here out there and what is happening. Where I mean, nobody has in the black race that I know of has authorized the Black Lives Matter as any type of leadership role in this country. I mean, for blacks. I mean, where are the
Right. I
so-called
don't
real?
think they
Are
want-
there any real black leaders out there? If they are, would they please stand up?
Well, I don't think that they believe that this is a possibility. I think that they think that everything is hunky dory, you might say, and so as a result, they're not going to talk like this, because if they did, the people who fund them, who many times may be offshoots to the people who are funding the turmoil, are not. They'll say, "Wait a minute, Bob, you can't be talking like that. That's going to cause problems for us." And and I'll give you a perfect example. I just happened to see this on the CBS News this morning. One of the guys who 40 years, or maybe 30 years ago, 20 years ago, he was one of the alt-right, one of the Nazis. He was a skinhead. And he said he was in that for about 10 years. And then as he got older, he decided that, well, everybody should kumbaya and love each other. So he started a non-profit organization to fight against the skinheads. Now, the Obama administration was granting him a grant for $400,000 to carry on his work over the last several years. $400,000 a year to carry on his work. This guy was on television this morning kind of lamenting the fact that he had gotten screwed by the Trump administration because they cut off his $400,000 grant. Now think about this. I'm a skinhead. I go out here and promote this kind of violence when I'm a young man, because they just suck me in, because that's what I decide to do. I'm still kind of trying to find my way. I don't understand how the thing works. And then when I get older and I see how it works, I say, well, hell, if I fight against this, like the so-called alt-left, just like the alt-left are fighting the Black Lives Matter, fighting against it now, I could get set up and get a grant. So I form my own nonprofit, get a $400,000 a year grant, and let's say he's only done that for a couple of years, 3 years. Well, that's $1,200,000, And Trump came in, the Trump administration, they told him, well, you're not getting any more money from us. Now he's pissed off, so he goes on TV to talk about how bad it is that, he's not getting funded anymore to fight this race. And you can't fight, look, you cannot fight white supremacy in America, because America is a white supremacist country. That's a fact.
Okay, Bob. That is, we're going to leave that there for today. I do appreciate you coming on here, and we'll take that. We'll continue our discussion at another time, and on this subject, because it's like you said, it's going to be around with us for a while, and I think people should know about this. And I think we'll dig up more information and get it out to the people, and they can accept it or discard it. Thanks again, Bob, and have a great day.